lower level, higher level.
Different grades.
Yes, they're grades. They're grades. You know, I think that's the problem with Muqtada al-Sadar, because
Okay.
Muqtada al-Sadar is like this mid-level ayatollah, right?
Okay, I just
Yeah.
so,
So I think he wants to be there, like the grand, like the up
Okay,
there, you
yeah,
know,
yeah, the
the
supreme.
top, the supreme, yeah, the guardian, you know,
Okay.
the top. So I think that, and then you have to study, like you said, like, you know, like, so I think like Muqtada al-Sadar, like I think he continued his study, you know, like he wants to deepen his knowledge. You know, you go to Qom, for example, and then you the center of Shia learning, you know, you do all these things, you know, but you have to, so when you discuss concept, like specific concepts, you know, like patriarchy or taqlid and all these things, like Dr. Azim mentioned, it is a complicated concept, right? And then you have to specify that, you have to define it, you know, within, especially within the context of the research. You know, you talk about patriarchy within the Shia political system, you know, this religious patriarchy. Then you have to mention, you have to define, okay, it means that this criteria, you know, male, it has to be this, you have to achieve, you know, certain level of learning, you know, you have to, maybe it helps if you come from a pedigree background. You know, if you're like Muqtada Sadar, for example, his father is like a famous ayatollah, right? So this kind of, so if you come from the family of that, you know, it gives you advantage, you know, things like that. So you have to mention this in your, when you define this concept, you know. You cannot assume that readers actually know what you actually mean, you know, especially when I say, you know, the first, when I see the word patriarchy, the word it comes to mind, you know, feminism, you know, gender equality, and all those things, you know.
Kadita.
So, yeah, Kadita, you know. And Prof. the Raida face, you know, comes to my mind, you know, so like, so you know, so you have to be more specific, you know, especially within the context of your research, you know, and then you include all those things that you mentioned, right? That this is why it's called religious patriarchy. That's the reason why the term patriarchy is used in this context, not religious matriarchy or whatever, you know.
Or oligarchy, right? As opposed to oligarchy.
Yeah, exactly. Polygarchy.
So,
Yeah.
you know, taqlid in English means traditional. If I need to translate taqlid, tradition or emulation.
Yeah.
You know already our culture. I mean Arabs in general. Our culture is a tradition and emulation.
You can ask this one Arab guy here. You can ask him.
Yes. So if we add this is taqlid, the system, this is fit with the culture. With the culture. So our culture is become taqlid already. With system or without system. For example, Muhtadi Sadr not Ayatollah. His father Ayatollah, he killed in 1999. His father Ayatollah.
And he killed his father?
No.
His father was killed.
His father was killed, okay.
Yes, killed.
Right,
And the followers transferred to his son Muqtada Sadr. He's leader, just leader, not Ayatollah.
No.
But the system of taqlid make people, their culture is taqlid automatically. Their mind automatically. Why? Because this is taqlid repeat itself by generation to generation. And this become all the people emulation already. Emulate someone, emulate custom, emulate family, emulate tribe, emulate religion, emulate leaders automatically. No. So for this reason I want to mention all this. I have a plan to include everything with my step by step with my work. So also for this reason I know to focus Sunni also they patriarchy, because if you talk Sunni in Iraq, this is Arab. And this is Arab, all the Arab is patriarchy already. The culture. The religion also patriarchy, but the system is different from Sunni and Shia, is different more different. So but I want to focus on Shia. If I go to the Sunni, it will be big large, and maybe I will give more work about that. So for this reason I want to focus on just Shia. Why? Because we don't have enough study about Shia. We don't have enough study about Taqlid, and also this is a new term I want to establish, religious patriarchy. I know to focus on this. Maybe I will give a new term or a new concept, social library sociology.
And this, can I add one comment as well, because you brought up you mentioned this before. I think when you say like it's part of the culture, right? The patriarchy, part of the Arab culture, part of the Bedouin culture, right? I think it's interesting because there is also a debate in political science that some places more resistant, some regions I guess more resistant to democracy because of the culture. It's like more like authoritarian type of culture, more hierarchical type of culture, more patriarchal type of culture. Hence, it's a bit more, it's more resistant to democracy than say other parts of the world. I think there are literature on that. You can look up. The the relation correlation between culture and democracy. But of course, when you discuss culture as a sociologist who can attest to, you're always at the risk of essentializing culture, because you say like, even what is Arab culture? And there's no like one Arab culture, right? So you have like the Saudi culture, maybe you have like, it's different maybe
We
if you
share,
go
we share same
like
culture.
Northern Africa, Arabs might be different, so even when you say like, you're always at the risk of like, like it's you know what I mean,
Stereotyping.
yeah, stereotyping,
Yeah,
essentializing, this Arab culture. But I think it's worth looking into this kind of literature that links culture and democracy, because even Samuel Huntington, I guess makes that kind of class of civilization, saying like Islamic country, they're not going to democratize, because their religion is hostile to democratic ideals, and hence people like Nadir Hashimi and all these people, they wrote rebuttals, I guess, or to this contention made by Huntington. So I think you can look that as well, because when you culture democracy, which is also is quite like hotly debated in political science as well.
Yes, Doctor, new political sociology talk about the culture. If you look to the policy, we go to the culture of society toward this policy. Especially if you go to Tony Giddens, in his book
Yeah, Tony
about
Giddens,
social democracy. He talk about if the people have the culture democracy between them, they will go to the democratic system already. They will build. Why? Because their background, their culture is democracy. But the problem, if their culture is patriarchy, what should we do? We should go. This is with the political patriarchy, not democratic, political democracy. So we have this is problem, the gap between our culture and the system, political system. This is huge gap. What is that gap? Religious patriarchy with the process that lead. And also, we talk about the approach, the methodology. Yes, I discussed with my supervisor about that. We put this is just we put this, and I say we will see with proposal defense if we go yes remove this is quantitative, or we stay with quantitative, but we will focus just about quantitative. So yes, I agree with you and with Victor.
Maybe Dr. Azim wants to continue to say something.
Right.
And then we have Dr. Ali over here, who's from field of international relations as well. He
My
have a
train
cluster.
of thought has been this
Sorry.
has been actually veered off.
Okay.
I just got a call from my boss.
Okay.
All right, going back to what I said earlier, I think this kind of study, first and foremost, is actually reinforcing certain things like Oriental despotism and things like that, and of course you are using Weber, and there are many things that are actually missing from his theory about how society transforms and so on. And my question to you is very simple. What is it that you want to achieve in this study? The main objective. What is the main objective of this study?
Yes, the main objective in my study, I want to study if the clique affected in the built government during from 2003 up to now. If the Taqlid affected in this government, that's big a problem. I want the negotiate between them, so that I need to write this. The people don't want to Taqlid follow Ayatollah to build their government. Why? Because if we want democratic system, or this democratic system needs citizenship. Citizenship, the people know about their right to vote or to build government by themselves, by their thought. If the people follow Ayatollah by Taqlid to build their government, this is lead to corruption, lead to contradiction, lead to hybridization. Until I want to study, this is Taqlid. This
So
is a
you're
process.
basically what you're studying is what should be. You're looking at it from normative perspective, right?
What? Please repeat that. Say that again, please.
Your study, you are actually conceptualizing, or what you're saying, you're proposing something that that is ideal, quote unquote. So you are talking about what should be, correct?
Yes. No, I talk about both of them. I want to study construction. This is social phenomena, and to establish the new concept about this is a model and patriarchy, religious patriarchy and Shia community, and study their structure, and also when I construction, this is social phenomena, and then I will write what should be. Right? So,
But are there? I would imagine that there have been many studies on the structure of the Shia community, correct? There have been many studies on the structure of the Shia community.
there's many study, but there's a study I read it about that. They don't focus about this process, Taqlid. They focus about their faith, their thought, their history, but don't fix about this Taqlid. I think we don't have sociological study about Taqlid. And this is very important thing to study this Taqlid for Shia construction, this is methodology, the system. I don't to destroy this Taqlid about religion. Maybe people need Ayatollah to organize them about religion. But people don't need Ayatollah to organize them about their government, to build their government or their system, a democratic system. So about Taqlid we don't have. Also, we don't have study about classify Shia as patriarchy, religious patriarchy. We don't have that. I discussed some about one socialist in Iraq, he's doctor. He said patriarchy not about Shia, patriarchy about Catholic Church, not Shia. I told him this is Catholic Church, this term is a religious term. I talk about sociology and anthropology also at the same time. If we talk about sociology and anthropology at the same time, this is patriarchy become culture, not religious system. Culture. Of this culture apply in any society, this is patriarchy. It's different in details, yes, because culture is different from society to another society. But if the system works the same, obedience and follow or blind obedience or like this is patriarchy. And also not as blind obedience. Maybe I obedience by thought, by intelligence, but obedience. This is patriarchy. And when I talk about patriarchy, not mean this negatively or positively. No. I talk about structure, social structure, cultural structure.
My take is, I mean, the way you have explained to me what you are interested in, and how you want to move forward with what you're doing is basically, I mean, it is a problem in politics, is a major problem in political science. We're talking about the transformation of an authoritarian society, how an authoritarian society will actually democratize. And of course, in this sense, you're talking about certain cultural dimension that might not be compatible to democracy. And of course, you will always fall back on a Western conception of how democracy can come about. it is through the process of secularization. Basically, you are talking about how to get rid of religious dimension in a society, and that society will turn into a secular one, and then that society will democratize. So to me, it is, there is a huge literature in political science about this, and you can always look into them, and of course, if you go by certain theories, they would say that you need a certain kind of culture in order for you to become a mature democracy, or how democracy can take place. They're talking about Protestant ethics, how Protestant ethics is actually compatible to democracy, and how Europe has actually become what it is today because they put religion in the back seat and they have become secular. So you are looking at Islam. Islam is not the same as Protestantism or Catholicism. And you are trying to put a round hole in a square peg. So that is going to be quite challenging to me. And of course, you have Ibn Khaldun. There are also many other Islamic theories that you can fall back on, and this has to be problematized in your problem statement. Your problem statement has to be very clear. To me, in my mind, the major challenge in any PhD level research is to come up with a good problem statement, and that actually is based on a good literature review. You have to understand the literature in political science, in political sociology, on democracy and democratization. Democracy and democratization has always been very popular in political science, mainly because that's what a lot of Western scholars talk about and are still talking about. How they're talking about how China can transform into democracy when there are so many ingredients that already exist in China to make it a democracy, but China is still not a democracy. They have embraced market capitalism. They have become capitalists, but they are not democratic. So actually, China is an antithesis to modernization theory. So I would suggest that you go back to some of the literature on democracy. Look how, for example, why Japan has managed to transform into a democratic society. Taiwan, for example, and South Korea, and they were all Indonesia. They were all once upon a time, an authoritarian state. And of course, Taiwan, South Korea became an economic powerhouse under an authoritarian regime. So the trajectory to democracy is there are many ways for a country to democratize. Nobody would imagine Indonesia becoming one of the most vibrant democracies in Southeast Asia during Suharto's era. He was a strongman politician, and nobody could imagine that Malaysia would actually get rid of a government that has been in power since 1957.
Oldest government, oldest elected government.
So is it really
unbroken?
So I think I think you can continue with what you're doing, but it needs a few fine tuning here and there, and you should talk to Dr. Ribani about it. And of course, as I said earlier, there are rooms for you to play around with at this stage, for you to fine tune your study, to strengthen your research design. All right.
All right. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you for the insight. I think that's very, very apt. I think your thoughts behind what you want to do is actually crucial. I don't want to comment now. We will have a discussion with that. But I'd like to invite Dr. Ali Maksum. He is a graduate centrist in international relations. from Universitas Muhammadiyah, Yogyakarta. Yeah.
Okay,
So
thank you.
so it's here for sabbatical right now. So
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rifani. I think as discussion right here, I think actually you want to study religion and democracy actually. You just want to compare whether taqlid, concept, and democracy can match together in Iraq society. But you have to say, you have said before that taqlid and Ayatollah Khomeini, as Ayatollah concept, if this is sustainable in Iraq, will be lead to the corruption, right? So I think you have to, to find more about why you choose this kind of study. Of course, there is some cases like okay, during this era, corruption in Iraq may be growing up. And then you can justify, using this because of this kind of concept, taqlid, patriarchy in Iraq, corruption growing in Iraq. But maybe using democracy, this is will be better. Let's say like that. Of course, you want try to challenge that this kind of concept, actually democracy, if apply properly in Iraq, of course, this is will be better for the future of Iraq, maybe. That's why we have to find the reasons why you have to study taqlid, and also you want to offer democracy for Iraq. I think that's much clear that taqlid and patriarchal system in Iraq, this is the barrier of the the democratization, the modernity, the advanced development in Iraq. If there is the reasons, that's why I agree with Dr. Azim that this should be clear whether the concept actually just taqlid and patriarchal concept in Iraq, and also a democracy, if you want to match it with democracy. And I think you just mentioned that field studies on Shia and also in sociological context. I think this should be proved by some literature. You have to mention earlier that maybe a previous study did not mention that patriarchal and democracy did not study in Iraq references. Maybe you have to mention it earlier in your background, and then I think this is more stronger to justify that your study this is significant for the this research field. And also, yes, if you want to, I think your definitions on patriarchal may be different with the audience, with the examiners. I think this is, I'm worried if you defense with your concept and then examiners have a specific concept on patriarchy. You want to be, like a clash with your examiners, because the general concept of patriarchy, of course, like this, that the sociologists understand the patriarchy like this, but you have own concept also on patriarchy. That's why you have to refer to a specific literature. Which one is patriarchy you mean? Concept should be clear. And then you can follow to the another concept of that. Maybe this is unique patriarchal concept in Iraq, that maybe this is the new one of patriarchal theory. I think that's all.
Thank you, Dali, and I'm glad that you have oriented your comment towards the Viva, you know, because that's actually the end game is that one, right? So you want to succeed there, yeah. Ali was saying, if you design the research in such a way that it becomes a problem later on, then it becomes more problems. You want to design it in such a way that it solves those problems before you go to Viva. I think that's a very valid point there. We had what Dr. Azmi was also talking about just now. When people talk about patriarchy, they would think, feminism, sexual harassment.
Yes, of course. But yes, of course. But if I mentioned many studies talk
Yes.
about
Yes.
patriarchy,
Yes.
part of
Religious
gender,
patriarchy, yeah.
about feminists. Yes, this is very reinforce my proposal
Yes,
about that. Yes.
But you remind me of another student of mine,
Yes.
Iranian, who studied religious nationalism.
Philippines.
Well, at first he wanted to come up with a solution for Middle East peace. I said, are you serious?
But then again, you talk about
You win the Nobel
if
Peace
you talk about
Prize.
religious patriarchy, right?
Yes.
It is almost always a male-dominated structure.
Yeah.
You cannot have a woman cleric.
Yeah. So
You see, we don't have women cleric.
So that is that is why you talk about patriarchal.
yeah,
It is almost synonymous with the definition of patriarchy in other settings. It's a male-dominated structure, and the clerics are all males.
yeah.
So it's actually in sync with the definition that is currently being used in gender studies literature or even in other sociological literature on patriarchy. It's a male domination.
I don't think we are saying that it cannot be studied. I think it'd be good to study, but you need to conceptualize clearly.
Yes, I understand.
problematize
Yes,
it.
I understand them. Yes, I understand them. For this reason, I should give hard work, and also I should be insist methodological and scientifical. There is religious patriarchy.
Yeah.
Not patriarchy, not just limit with the feminist or with the man dominate over women, but there is more deep thing behind this. Is if we talk about cultural structure,
Yeah.
society, if we see men dominate, for example, if someone dictatorial I talk about policy now. If someone dictatorship, and he dictatorial, yes, and
Dictator, man.
dictator,
Okay.
dictator, and he took over control over society. This is society. He transformed all this patriarchy. Well, this one man, he take control over society. Women, children, old men, young men, female, male. Just the decision returning to one man, just president. This is patriarchy. This is a part of dominate women, men over women. So for this reason, I want to give this conceptual framework about religious patriarchy.
Before, anyway, maybe you want to get other people's comments as well.
Comment?
Muhammad,
Comment?
the an insider's perspective.
Yeah.
Insider, the Arab insider. Saudis.
Actually, I think having known of this topic is difficult for me. Also, I didn't have enough information about Iraq, Syria, and some other countries. Just they have general information as what you know.
Okay.
Something is involved. Thank you.
All right. Okay. The Saudis' perspective compared to MBS versus Muhtadi Sadar. Which one is the good guy?
has good relationship with
What's that?
Muqtada Sadr has good relationship with Saudi Arabia.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, Saudi is moving towards democracy in that sense, right? The Muhtadi is really
Mohammed bin Salman, he began to reform,
Reform,
do
yeah.
reform about government, about society. Yes, especially this is some intolerance idea.
Yeah,
They want to erase this is intolerance idea. You has a project. I watched his interview last year. Talk about this is modernization, about society. There's a project about Saudi Arabia and all this area. And also he say if Iraq join with us, welcome. Join with us. Yes, I think this is good. This is first time.
Maybe there is a parallel, because the Wahhabi clerics in Saudi Arabia has been very powerful, right? And then now you have MBS instituting all these reforms, that might be at odds, clash with some of the more conservative values that this Wahhabism.
I think Shia system is different than Sunni, as you know.
Yeah,
Of course.
This is extreme, centralized, central system. For us, no, decentralized, we don't follow anyone. No taqleed, nothing.
no taqleed.
Yes. For example, our sheikh, we call it, write your book, make your fatwa, people can take it or they can't. Yes. And maybe you write book, he write book, I take his fatwa and take your book.
Yes.
But in Shia, completely different, it's extreme central
It's
system.
closer
You have
to
to follow-
theocracy.
You have to give money and many things.
But I wonder, what's the compliance rate? I guess when within the Shia community, when the Ayatollah issue a fatwa, for example, like Muhammad say, like in Sunni, it's like a recommendation whether you want to follow or not follow. It's up to you, or you can seek other fatwas as well. So you can shop around. Like in supermarket, you can choose whatever product that you like the most. So, but in this case, this is also for my own curiosity too, because I'm wondering, like within the Shia community, so like if an Ayatollah or the religious council issue a fatwa saying that you cannot smoke, it's haram to smoke. Like everyone just quit smoking or like is there like and also I guess the second prong of the question is that is there an enforcement aspect of it? Like for Sunni, of course there's no enforcement because people say whether you accept or not accept the fatwa, no one's going to punish you for it, right? So but instead, what is the case with the Shia? Like you see, like if the Ayatollah issue a fatwa, and then people like openly defiant, so like we're not going to follow. Then
In Iraq,
like within like
The Shia, you talk about Shia system. The Shia system is same. 12 per Shia. There is many dominations. 12 per Shia. The system went around the globe. For example, Ayatollah al-Sistani, he stayed in Najaf now. His followers maybe 2 million. His followers not from Iraq, just from Iraq. From all the Shia around the world follow him and wait his fatwa to anything issue they follow. For example, al-Sistani, he can affect it in the Iran, he can affect it in the Pakistan, he can affect it in the Bahrain, any Shia around the world, he can affect it if you issue fatwa. Why? Because this fatwa not boundaries, not limited with boundaries. No, it's outside boundaries. And they have system. For example, they say public people should follow most knowledge Ayatollah. I should choose most knowledge Ayatollah and follow him. This is taqleed. If I follow him,
most knowledgeable.
If I follow him, everything issue from him, I should follow because he's better than me to issue, to detective fiqh, detective issue, detective fatwa from the system, usul al-fiqh, if you know, the original of fiqh or the methodology of fiqh. So, and also I buy hummus. This is hummus, 1.5% from my earning money, my work. This is the Sunni don't have that. The Sunni have
20% you give this.
Hummus,
The Sunni have the
you
zakat.
can eat hummus? No.
No, hummus. Hummus. This is the Quran. Hummus, you know.
Oh.
I give 20% from my money to the Ayatollah.
Oh, this is like
The Islam,
the
Islam
Islam
have
thing.
zakat.
No,
You have
zakat.
zakat. Zakat list. This is
Zakat.
not hummus.
Okay, 20% is a lot. No.
Yes, for example, the Shia institution is very rich. Shia
Oh.
institution is very rich. Yes, very rich.
Okay.
Taqlid is not free. You have to pay.
Now that I study Khamenei in Iran, he's Ayatollah, and he ruled the Iran, and also he ruled outside Iran. For example, his followers in Iraq, they have parties, and these parties belong to Iran, belong to Khamenei and Khamenei affected in the policy, in the system of the policy. So the conflict here in Iraq between Muhtadi Sadr, this is the school, Ali Khamenei, this belief in Wilayat al-Faqih, if you know about that Wilayat al-Faqih in Iran, and Ali Sistani in Najaf, he don't believe in Wilayat al-Faqih, he believes the nation, he can rule themselves by themselves. The Ayatollah don't interfere directly with the government, just guide. Ayatollah
This
just
is the
guide.
view of Ali Sistani.
What?
Ali Sistani's view that they should not
Ali
be.
Sistani has followed maybe 2 million, the biggest one, the great Ayatollah Ali
Yeah.
Sistani, the great, but he don't interfere with the policy.
Okay, okay.
Policies he quiet. So if you look to the Shia now, we have three, for example, in Iraq, 3 schools, different ideology. Khamenei believe in Wilayat al-Faqih, the Ayatollah should interfere in everything,
Intervene.
society, religion, policy, economy. Al-Sistani, no, he believe his school believe Ayatollah should interfere with society, religion, economy, not with the policy. He wait the Imam Mahdi come again. He's
Okay.
upset
Yes.
until he can rule. Now we cannot rule anything because we wait Imam Mahdi. Muqtada Sadr between them.
He has his own political party.
Yes.
Muqtada Sadr.
Husband, because
Yeah.
his father, he criticized Iran. He said there's no Ayatollah there because I am most knowledgeable from there. So, Wilayat al-Faqih to me, not to him, to them. So, Muqtada Sadr, he's belong to his race because he's Arabic. Not to belong to Iran completely like them because his father is different. And he is close to Al-Sistani because both of them live in Najaf city. So this is Shia now. So the followers follow Khamenei, they do something else. This is follow Al-Sistani, something else. Some Shia follow Al-Sistani but political belong to Ali Khamenei. Why? Because this interfere with policy. This Al-Sistani don't interfere with policy.
I find this
The
dynamic
situation
quite
is complicated.
interesting. You know? I mean, did you discuss about this in your
Yes, I
in your
discussed about
proposal?
what?
This kind of this internal dynamics between the Shia leader, because you see like these 3 camps, and then you have the Ali Sistani and Muqtada Sadr allying, and then you have Khamenei, and then how many of the Shias in Iraq actually look up to Khamenei in Iran, as opposed to their own local leader there in Najaf or in
Local leader, for example, political leader, or they have
Yeah,
militia.
local political, yeah.
The cleric have militia, has
Yeah.
militia. Yes, I mentioned that step by step with my work, especially in literature review. I mentioned that, and my supervisor know about that. The situation is complicated. So, who is the rule the government? Don't one know about the democratic system? Don't know because their background, all this background, maybe this Islamic policy or traditional policy, don't fit with this era, with this situation in political democratic.
So it
And
makes it even
with
more
this-
complex than Iran.
Yes.
Much more complex than Iran, yeah? Because you have like many layers of authorities and yeah.
Yes. Sunni, for example, Sunni, the institution of Sunni, this linked with the state always. So for this reason, the Sunni, especially if you look at the Salafiyah, especially ISIS or Al Qaeda, this is different. But most of the Sunni, their institution linked with the government. Why? Because their schools linked with the higher education ministry, but the Shia school no, independent. money, Shia money independent. They don't belong to, they don't depend on the government anymore. So Al-Sistani or any school in the Shia, they have own school, independent from government, don't belong to the government. And for example, Ayatollah don't have degree from government. No, Ayatollah have degree from the institution, the school of the Shia. And also they have own money. For example, they shrines in the Iraq or shrine around the world, they bring money because the people give money to the shrine to go, and all this money belongs to the Shia institution. And also hummus.
The
I talk
Catholic
about
Church,
hummus.
almost, yeah.
Also talk about hummus. They say God don't accept anything from any individual if they don't pay hummus.
That hummus or hummus?
Hummus.
How do you spell that?
لله خمسه والرسول.
Write it, hummus, hummus. Just put hummus. But the right is there.
Ha, ha,
Hummus.
ha, ha,
Hummus.
hummus.
Same خمسة. Five.
Hummus, okay.
I keep thinking hummus.
Hummus, I like hummus. I like
No, hummus. I like hummus.
I'm okay. Okay.
You can go to Halam after this.
Hummus وطحينة.
Okay, is there any more comments or you have some more questions? Maybe Dr. Diana, you want to say something? Right.
I comment already.
Okay, anyone here? Una, Farah, Lisa? Oh, okay. No, okay. I mean, it's almost 5, right? So I think we have a very lively, heated discussion. Where we go through the comments and we see how we can streamline this. Very important comments. The Orientalism perspective is pretty important as well. So if there's no more, we'll wrap it up. We'll say thank you very much to our
Thank you very
evaluators,
much.
Dr. Azmir, Dr. Azim.
Azim and Azrin.
Azmir. Yeah, Dr. Azim, yeah.
I have suggested readings for the democratization as well. So when you email me later on, I can suggest, like Wan Lin's Alfred Stepan and all those people, So
Yes,
like,
I will email you.
like the one that Dr. Azim mentioned, like his literature on democratization, his democratic transition, from authoritarianism to democracy. So there's a vast literature on this. So I can suggest a few seminal readings, I guess, that you can look up.
Yeah. And another A, Dr. Ali, also A.
Okay.
Dr. Ali. Also A, right? Another A there. But then you know that. Okay, thank you very much. Nicola, thank you for those who are here online as well. I see from some from China, some from Africa, Nigeria maybe, I'm not sure. So some Ipoh